After my obsessive coworker fabricated an affair to break up my marriage, my wife laughed and said, "I don't care if it's true or not, I'll take everything in the divorce." So I blew up both of their lives. Sup Reddit. So my obsessed coworker sent my wife fake screenshots claiming we had an affair. Instead of confronting me, my wife pulled out our prenup and said, "I don't care if it's true. I'm taking everything." They both forgot one critical detail. I document everything. Grab something to eat and enjoy the chaos. I, 34 male, have been working at a mid-sized tech company in Austin for 6 years as an internal auditor. The job's solid, good pay, decent benefits, the usual corporate nonsense about synergy and team-building exercises. Nothing special, but it paid the bills, and then some. More than enough, actually, since I was the only one bringing home a paycheck. My wife Kendra, 32 female, and I had been married 8 years. High school sweethearts, whole romantic backstory, blah blah blah. She'd tried a few jobs early in our marriage, retail, receptionist work, some admin stuff, but never stuck with anything longer than 6 months. Always had an excuse. Boss was terrible. Co-workers were mean. The commute was too long. The work was beneath her. Eventually, she just stopped trying. Said she'd focus on building something from home. And by that, she meant starting a new money-making scheme every 6 months that never made a dime. First, it was selling essential oils. Then she got into making custom jewelry on Etsy that sat in boxes in our garage because nobody bought them. Then it was some Instagram influencer nonsense, where she'd post photos of our house and talk about lifestyle optimization to her 73 followers. Her latest thing? Drop shipping. She'd spent 3 grand of our money, my money technically, on some online course that promised she'd be making 6 figures within a year. That was 8 months ago. Total revenue to date, $247. Total expenses, north of $5,000 when you counted the course, the website, the inventory she panic bought, and all the Facebook ads that went nowhere. But Kendra was convinced this was it. This was her ticket to financial freedom. Never mind that I was the one actually providing said financial freedom, while she burned through money on schemes that any person with half a brain could see were garbage. We had a house in the suburbs, 2 cars, and a golden retriever named Boomer, who was objectively the best member of our household. On paper, we looked like we had it figured out. Over the years, things got worse. She'd max out credit cards on shopping sprees, then act shocked when the bill came, then get irritated when I suggested maybe we should save money instead. And anytime I brought up finances, like maybe she could get an actual job instead of burning money on doomed business ventures, she'd hit me with the "you just don't want me to be happy" routine. Here's the thing though. When we got married, my grandparents had just passed and left me a decent inheritance. Nothing crazy, but enough that my parents suggested we get a prenup. Kendra wasn't thrilled about it, but we were young and in love, so she signed. The terms were simple. Anything I came into the marriage with stayed mine. Anything we built together got split 50-50. Standard stuff. There was one clause, though, that turned out to be crucial. If either party committed adultery, they forfeited their claim to marital assets. My mom insisted on it. Said she'd seen too many friends get screwed over by cheating spouses who still walked away with half. Kendra had rolled her eyes at the time, said it was unnecessary because we'd never cheat on each other. Then Renee showed up. She joined our development team about 4 months ago as a project manager. Early 30s, reasonably competent at her job, but had this weird vibe from day one. She was overly friendly in that way that immediately puts you on edge. Always finding excuses to stop by my desk, laughing way too hard at jokes that weren't remotely funny, asking personal questions that had nothing to do with work. First week, she asked me where I went to college. Fine, normal small talk. Second week, she asked me where I grew up, if I had siblings, what my hobbies were. Getting a bit personal, but whatever. By week 3, she was asking me about my workout routine, what kind of music I listened to, what my favorite restaurants were. The real red flag came about a month in. I was working late on a deadline, maybe 7 at night, and Renee was still there. She came over to my desk with 2 sodas from the break room fridge and said, "Thought you could use this." Long day, right? I took the drink because I didn't want to be rude, but I kept working. She pulled up a chair and just sat there, sipping her soda, watching me work on audit spreadsheets. Didn't say anything for a solid 5 minutes. Just watched me. Finally, she goes, "You're really focused when you work. It's attractive." I laughed it off like she was joking, made some comment about deadlines being a good motivator, and went back to my screen. She sat there for another 10 minutes before finally leaving. That's when I knew this was going to be a problem. Over the next 2 months, Renee ramped up the weirdness. She started calling herself my work wife. Not as a joke, like in actual meetings with actual clients. She'd say things like, "Oh, let me check with my work husband about that timeline," and gesture at me while I'm sitting there wondering if HR had a protocol for this level of cringe. She'd bring me coffee every morning. I don't even drink coffee. When I finally stopped accepting it, she switched to bringing me pastries from the bakery near her apartment. She started finding reasons to touch me, hand on my shoulder during meetings, brushing past me in the hallway when there was plenty of room. One time, she accidentally dropped a pen under the conference table during a meeting, and while picking it up, put her hand on my thigh for like 3 full seconds. I moved my chair away. She smiled like I'd just passed some test. The texts started around 6 weeks after she joined. Work stuff at first, quick questions about projects, asking for feedback on documents, normal project manager stuff. But then it shifted. Late night texts asking what I was doing. Messages on weekends asking if I wanted to grab coffee or go for a hike. One time she sent me a photo of her at some bar downtown with the caption, "Wish you were here." I kept my responses short and professional. "Busy. Can't. Got plans." "That's nice. Have fun." I wasn't trying to be mean, just maintaining basic boundaries. But Renee didn't operate on the concept of boundaries. I mentioned it to Kendra once, maybe 2 months into Renee's employment. Tried to laugh it off like, "This project manager at work keeps doing this weird work wife thing. It's kind of awkward." Kendra barely looked up from her phone where she was scrolling through drop-shipping Facebook groups. "Sounds like she has a crush. Just ignore her." So I did, which in hindsight was probably mistake number 1. Around 2 months in, I started keeping records. Not because I'm paranoid, but because when something seems off, you document it. Plus, I'd heard enough horror stories about false harassment claims to know that without documentation, you're done for. Tech industry's full of stories about guys who got accused of something they didn't do and had zero proof to defend themselves. Companies fire first and ask questions never, especially if there's even a whiff of impropriety. I wasn't trying to build a case against Renee. I was trying to protect my job. If she decided to flip the script and accuse me of harassing her, I needed proof that I'd been the one setting boundaries. Simple as that. Every text message I screenshot and saved to a folder on my personal laptop. I even started keeping a voice memo journal on my phone. After particularly weird interactions, I'd sit in my car and record myself describing what happened, the exact words exchanged, who else was around. Felt excessive at the time. But you know what's more excessive? Getting fired over a false accusation because you can't prove your side of the story. By month 3, I had a file on my laptop that was basically a Renee dossier. Screenshots, time-stamped notes, voice memos, everything organized by date. I even had a separate document tracking escalation patterns, how her behavior was getting progressively more aggressive. She started asking personal questions about my marriage. "How long have you been together? Do you guys still go on dates? Are you happy?" I'd give vague answers or redirect the conversation back to work, but she was relentless. One night, about 3.5 months after Renee started, I was working late on a major audit report. Like, actually late, past 10 at night. Everyone else had gone home hours ago. I was in the zone, trying to finish before the weekend, when Renee appeared at my desk. "Burning the midnight oil?" she said, sitting on the edge of my desk. Not pulling up a chair, sitting on my actual desk, one leg dangling. "Yeah, trying to finish this before Monday," I said, not looking up from my screen. "You work too hard. Kendra doesn't appreciate you." That got my attention. I looked up. "Excuse me? I'm just saying," Renee continued, leaning forward slightly. "You're here at 10 at night working your butt off, and I bet she's at home watching TV or scrolling through her phone. Does she even know you're here?" "That's really none of your business," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I'd appreciate you," she said quietly. "If you were mine, I'd never take you for granted." I stood up, grabbed my laptop, and shut her down. Hard. "Renee, I need you to understand something. This, whatever you think this is, stops now. I'm married. I'm not interested. I've tried to be polite, but you're crossing lines. This conversation is done, and from now on, we're strictly professional. That's it." Her face went from hopeful to shocked to something darker in about 3 seconds. She slid off my desk, smoothed her skirt, and her voice went ice cold. "You think you're too good for me? You think your boring wife who sits at home all day is better than someone who actually gets you? I think you need to leave," I said. "Right now." She stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed her bag and walked out. I heard her heels clicking down the hallway, then the elevator ding. I got home around 11. Kendra was asleep on the couch, iced tea glass on the coffee table, laptop open to some drop-shipping forum. I went to the bedroom, updated my Renee documentation file with tonight's incident, and went to bed thinking maybe, just maybe, that was the end of it. What I didn't know was that Renee went straight home that night and did exactly what any rational, well-adjusted person would do after getting rejected. She decided to blow up my life. The next evening, I got home from work around 6. Normal day. Wrapped up some projects. Didn't see Renee once. Figured she was avoiding me after last night's conversation. Good. That's what I wanted. Kendra was in the kitchen when I walked in. She didn't look up. Didn't say hi. Just stood there with her phone in her hand, staring at the screen. Hey, I said, setting my bag down. Everything okay? She looked up at me, and I knew immediately something was very, very wrong. We need to talk, she said, setting her phone down on the counter. Never a good sign. I sat down at the kitchen table. She stayed standing, arms crossed, looking at me like I was something she was evaluating. A business transaction. I know about Renee, she finally said. My stomach dropped. Not because I'd done anything, but because I knew whatever was coming next was going to be bad. What about Renee? I asked carefully. I know you slept with her, complete with my contact info and realistic timestamps. This is all fabricated, I said. These conversations never happened. Renee made these. They look pretty real to me, Kendra said, pulling her phone back. Because she edited them to look real, I said. But they're fake. I can prove it. I have 4 months of documentation showing Renee harassing me. I don't care. I stopped. What? Kendra leaned back against the counter, and for the first time, I saw something in her face that I'd never seen before. Not hurt, not anger, satisfaction. I don't care if it's true or not, she said slowly, like she was savoring the words. What I care about is that I have proof. Screenshots, messages, timestamps, detailed accounts of your affair. The way she said proof made my blood run cold. Kendra, I pulled out our prenup this afternoon, she continued, her voice getting more confident. Read through it real carefully. There's an adultery clause. If I can prove you cheated, I get everything we've built together. You forfeit your claim to marital assets. There it was. She wasn't devastated. She wasn't hurt. She'd spent the entire day since Renee's message figuring out how to profit from it. You saw an opportunity, I said slowly, the pieces clicking into place. Renee sends you fake screenshots, and instead of talking to me, instead of giving me a chance to explain, you immediately went to see how you could cash in. Thank goodness, she said, and there was actual relief in her voice. Finally, I don't have to pretend anymore. Do you know how exhausting it's been? Sitting around this boring house, playing the supportive wife while you work late every night, listening to you lecture me about budgets and savings while I'm trying to build something? The mask was completely off. 8 years of marriage. And I was seeing my wife for the first time. I've been looking for an out, she continued, gaining momentum. Kept thinking maybe one of my business ideas would work, and I could leave on my own terms. But this crazy woman just handed me everything I wanted on a silver platter. I don't even care if you actually slept with her. I have the screenshots. That's all I need. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice deadly calm. You're using fake evidence from a woman who's been harassing me to trigger the prenup clause so you can take everything we built. Not everything, she corrected, and she actually smiled. Everything we accumulated during the marriage. The house equity, the joint savings, your 401k contributions from the last 8 years. All of it. The prenup is crystal clear. Adultery means you forfeit marital assets. And you think a judge is just going to believe this? I think a judge is going to see detailed messages from your coworker describing your affair. And unless you can definitively prove it didn't happen, which you can't, because how do you prove a negative? The prenup clause kicks in. She picked up her water glass. I already called an attorney today. He said I have a solid case. Of course she did. While I was at work, she'd been researching, planning, getting legal advice. The moment Renee's message landed in her inbox, Kendra saw dollar signs. You're unbelievable, I said. I'm smart, she replied. You made good money. I got to enjoy it for 8 years. Now I get to walk away with half of what you've accumulated, and you can go be someone else's problem. She started to walk toward the living room, then turned back. One more thing. Don't fight this. Just accept it, and we can have a clean divorce. You fight me, and I'll make it as ugly as possible. I'll drag Renee into court to testify. I'll make sure everyone at your company knows. I'll ruin you. Or you can just sign the papers when they come. Your choice. Then she went to watch TV like she'd just negotiated a great price on a car. I sat at that table for maybe 5 minutes. Boomer came over and put his head on my lap. My hands weren't shaking. My mind wasn't racing. I was completely, utterly calm. Because I had 4 months of documentation on Renee. I had proof of every single inappropriate thing she'd done. And I was willing to bet money that Renee's midnight message to Kendra, Kendra's consultation with an attorney today, all of it, there'd be a trail. Because people like this always think they're smarter than they are. If Kendra wanted to play games, fine. But she'd pick the wrong guy to mess with. I didn't say a word to her for the rest of the night. Just went to the bedroom, opened my laptop, and started working. Here's the thing about being an internal auditor who's actually good at his job. I understand how systems work. Financial systems, data systems, security protocols, and phones. About a year ago, Kendra got a new iPhone. She asked me to set it up for her, transfer her photos, link her apps, the usual stuff. While I was doing it, I also set up our family sharing account through iCloud. We used it for shared photos, app purchases, location sharing, all that domestic couple stuff. She never changed the settings, which meant her iCloud backup was still synced to the shared account, which meant I could access her messages, photos, everything from my laptop. I know, it sounds shady, but you know what's shadier? Trying to steal half my assets using fake evidence without even pretending to care if it was true. That night, after Kendra went to bed, I pulled up her iCloud messages on my laptop, started scrolling, and holy cow, what I found. Renee's message had come in at 11:47 p.m. the previous night, less than 2 hours after I shut her down at the office. The timestamp told the whole story. I rejected her. She went home, and she immediately tried to destroy my marriage. The message was long, detailed, all fake, but convincing if you didn't know better. How the affair had started innocently. How we'd tried to fight it but couldn't resist. How I'd told her I was unhappy and thinking about leaving. Then came the screenshots. Text conversations that had never happened. Messages I'd never sent. Renee had spent probably hours photoshopping fake exchanges, complete with my contact info and realistic timestamps. Some of them even included message reactions and read receipts. She'd put serious work into this. Kendra's initial response came at 7:23 a.m. She must have seen it first thing in the morning. Is this real? Are you seriously telling me my husband is cheating on me? Renee, I'm so sorry. I know this is awful to hear, but I couldn't keep lying to you. You deserve to know the truth. Kendra, I need to think about this. Then nothing for 3 hours. But here's where it got interesting. At 10:47 a.m., Kendra started a text conversation with her best friend Lena. Lena, holy cow, you're not going to believe what just happened. What? This woman from my husband's work just messaged me saying they've been sleeping together. Sent me screenshots of their conversations. OMG, are you okay? And here's where Kendra showed exactly who she was. I don't even know if I care. I just pulled out our prenup. There's an adultery clause. If I can prove he cheated, I get everything from the marriage. The house equity, the savings, his 401k, all of it. Wait, you're not even upset? Lena, I've been dying in this marriage for years. He's boring as heck, works all the time, and I'm stuck at home trying to make businesses work with no money. This is literally my ticket out. And I get paid. This might be the best thing that could have happened. So you don't even care if he actually did it? Not even a little bit. I have screenshots from his coworker. That's proof enough. I'm calling that attorney my cousin recommended as soon as they open. There it was. In writing. She didn't care about the truth. She saw an opportunity the moment Renee's message hit her phone and immediately started calculating how to profit from it. The conversation continued. Kendra laying out her strategy. How she'd confront me but not reveal she'd already consulted an attorney. How the screenshots were probably enough to trigger the adultery clause. How I'd have a nearly impossible time proving the affair didn't happen. Lena asked, but what if he can prove it didn't happen? What if he has proof? Kendra, how? Even if he didn't do it, he can't prove he didn't. That's the beauty of this. I have detailed screenshots. He has, what? Saying I didn't do it? No judge is going to dismiss this without concrete proof it's fake. And that psycho coworker seems crazy enough she'd probably testify if we needed her to. She'd spent the entire day planning how to rob me using fake evidence. And she was excited about it. I kept scrolling, found more messages. Her calculating how much she'd walk away with, north of 200 grand when you factored in the house equity, savings, and my 401k contributions. Her already looking at apartments she could afford. Her telling Lena she was finally going to be free from this stupid man. Then I found the messages between Kendra and Renee from this afternoon, after our confrontation. Kendra, he knows. I told him tonight. Renee, what did he say? Kendra, denied it, obviously. Said you made it all up, that he's been documenting you harassing him. Renee, of course he'd say that. Men always deny it. Kendra, doesn't matter. I have your screenshots. That's all I need for the prenup clause. My attorney says it's basically a done deal. Renee, I'm glad I could help you see who he really is. You deserve so much better. Kendra, thank you for telling me. I know it must have been hard. They were coordinating. Not explicitly, Renee probably genuinely believed she was helping Kendra escape a cheater. But Kendra was using Renee's delusion to commit fraud, and she knew exactly what she was doing. Two completely delusional women. Lucky me. I took screen recordings of everything. Kendra's messages with Lena planning the shakedown, her text with Renee coordinating the story, the timeline showing she'd consulted an attorney before even talking to me. All of it. I had everything ready to destroy both of them legally. They had no idea what was about to hit them. I set my alarm for 5 a.m. Tomorrow morning, I was walking into HR. And this time, I wasn't asking for help. I was bringing receipts. I woke up at 5. Kendra was still asleep when I left at 6:30. Good. Got to the office at 7 a.m. Building was mostly empty, just security and a few early birds. I went straight to my desk and pulled up my complete Renee file. 4 months of documentation. Every text, every voice memo, every time-stamped note. Added last night's confrontation and the aftermath. Made sure everything was organized chronologically and indexed. Then I printed it all. Took 30 minutes and probably killed a small forest. But I wanted physical copies. 2 complete sets. One for HR, one for my attorney. At 7:45, I walked up to the executive floor. Our senior HR director usually got in around 7:30. Her office light was on. I knocked. Firm. Professional. Come in, she called. She looked up from her computer, clearly not expecting anyone this early. Oh, hello. Is everything all right? No, I said calmly. We have a serious workplace situation that needs immediate attention. Do you have time right now? The phrase serious workplace situation works like magic on HR people. She immediately closed her laptop and gestured to the chairs. Of course. Sit down. What's going on? I sat, placed my folder on her desk, and laid it out. Not frantically. Not emotionally. Like I was presenting an audit report. Because that's exactly what this was. I've been experiencing workplace harassment from a project manager named Renee for the past 4 months. I've documented everything. The harassment escalated 2 nights ago when she made inappropriate advances during a late-night work session. I rejected her explicitly and told her to maintain professional boundaries. Less than 2 hours later, she sent fabricated screenshots to my wife claiming we were having an affair. My wife is now filing for divorce based on these fake allegations. I have documentation of everything, including proof the screenshots were manufactured. Her expression went from confused to alarmed. That's a lot. Can you walk me through it from the beginning? I opened the folder. Walking her through it was exactly like an audit presentation. Started with the first incident 4 months ago. The escalating behavior. The night I rejected her. Her retaliation by creating fake evidence and sending it to Kendra. She was taking notes. And you're saying she fabricated evidence after you rejected her? Photoshopped text messages that never existed. I can prove conclusively that no affair occurred. But she sent them to my wife anyway as retaliation. This isn't just workplace harassment anymore. This is a coordinated attack using company relationships to destroy my personal life. She closed her notebook. I need to bring our legal counsel and the head of HR into this. This is beyond my scope. Can you be available later today? I'll make myself available whenever you need me. Good. I'll call you when we're ready. In the meantime, keep your distance from Renee. Don't engage if she tries to contact you. Already planning on it. I went back to my desk and actually worked. Because that's what you do. You execute your job while other people execute theirs. At 2:30, she called. Conference room. Head of HR, legal counsel, the VP of operations. I presented everything. 4 months of documentation. Renee's escalating behavior. The fake screenshots. Kendra's messages proving she knew they were potentially fake, but didn't care. We've reviewed your documentation, the head of HR said when I finished. We need to conduct a formal investigation. Renee's on administrative leave pending the outcome. We'll need several days. The legal counsel added, our investigation focuses on workplace conduct. We can't speak to matters outside that scope. Translation, don't expect us to fight your divorce battle. Fine. I hadn't planned on it. Thursday afternoon, investigation complete. Same conference room. Renee's employment has been terminated for inappropriate workplace conduct, the head of HR said. We're providing this letter confirming we investigated and found no evidence to support allegations of an improper relationship. I read the letter. Dry corporate speak. Following investigation, the company found no evidence to substantiate claims of an improper relationship. Investigation found evidence of policy violations by the employee in question, resulting in termination. Not dramatic, just enough to prove HR didn't buy her story. I left the building and drove straight to a law firm downtown. The attorney had a reputation for being ruthless. Doesn't lose. I walked in with 2 folders. Renee documentation plus HR letter. Kendra's messages with Lena planning the shakedown. The attorney reviewed it for 30 minutes. Your wife's trying to invoke a prenup clause based on fabricated evidence, he finally said. She admitted in writing she doesn't care if the affair happened. She just wants the payout. That's fraud. How soon can we file? Early next week. Divorce petition. Countersuit for emotional distress. Dismiss her prenup claim based on bad faith. Request she pays your legal fees. Do it. Filed Tuesday. Everything attached. Kendra's messages, Renee's fake screenshots, HR letter, my 4 months of harassment documentation. Kendra got served Thursday. Called me 19 times. I didn't answer once. Finally sent a text. Talk to my attorney. All communication goes through them now. She tried calling 12 more times that day. Then her attorney must have told her to stop because the calls ended. The settlement took 6 weeks. Her attorney shut down any fight once he saw the evidence. The messages with Lena were the nail in the coffin. Proof she'd seen a potential fraud opportunity and immediately pursued it without caring about the truth. Her attorney tried arguing the iCloud access was invasion of privacy. Mine pointed out she'd never changed the family sharing settings in a year, and that accessing shared family accounts isn't illegal when you're still legally married. Judge agreed. I kept everything I came into the marriage with. Marital assets got split fault-based. Judge wasn't charitable when someone tries to commit prenup fraud. I got the house. Both cars. Boomer. The savings account. My full 401k intact. She got her personal 401k, $12,000, and her personal belongings. The $23,000 in credit card debt she'd racked up, court made it her sole responsibility. Her drop-shipping inventory sitting in boxes. All hers. Her Etsy supplies? Hers. Her essential oils collection? Also hers. Judge noted in the ruling that attempting to invoke prenup clauses through fabricated evidence constituted bad faith and warranted the imbalanced settlement. Renee's implosion took longer, but was just as thorough. Getting fired for harassment kills careers in a tight-knit industry like ours. Austin's tech scene is small. Word travels fast. She tried getting another project management job. Applied to at least 15 companies according to a mutual connection. Nobody would touch her. After 8 months of failures, she left Texas entirely. Moved back to Ohio. Deleted all social media. An old coworker said she's working retail now. Didn't ask for details. Didn't care. 2 months after the settlement, Kendra texted asking when she could pick up her remaining stuff. I told her Saturday afternoon, 2 o'clock. Be in and out in 30 minutes or I'm donating everything to Goodwill. I was on the couch with Boomer watching college football when the doorbell rang at 1:58. Punctual for once in her life. I opened the door and there she was, looking rough around the edges. Hair not done, no makeup, wearing sweats that had definitely seen better days. Hey, she said quietly. Not the confident Kendra from the kitchen confrontation. This was defeated Kendra, the one who just spent 6 weeks getting demolished in court. You've got 30 minutes, I said, stepping aside. Your stuff's in the garage. Boxes are labeled. She walked past me without making eye contact, started heading toward the garage. Then the doorbell rang again. I opened it. Renee, standing on my front porch, in a sundress, hair curled, full makeup, holding a casserole dish. Hi, she said with this insane, hopeful smile. I heard about the divorce finalizing. I thought maybe we could talk. I brought lasagna. I just stared at her. You've got to be kidding me. I know things got messy, she continued like I hadn't spoken. But now that you're single, I thought maybe we could start fresh. I never stopped caring about you. Before I could respond, Kendra's voice came from behind me. Are you serious right now? Renee's smile dropped. Kendra appeared next to me in the doorway, looking at Renee like she'd just discovered dog mess on her shoe. What the heck are you doing here? Kendra demanded. I'm here to see him, Renee said, straightening up. Not that it's any of your business anymore. You're divorced. Because of your fake screenshots. You psychotic witch? They weren't fake, Renee shot back. We had something real. You just refused to see it. I held up a hand. Okay, let me clarify something real quick. We had nothing. You harassed me for 4 months. I rejected you. You tried to destroy my life. Then you got fired. Now you're standing on my porch with lasagna thinking we're gonna what? Start dating? Are you actually insane? Renee's face crumpled, but she pushed forward. You don't understand. I did it because I love you. I was trying to save you from her. Kendra laughed, sharp and mean. You love him? You don't even know him. You know what you are? A crazy person who cost me $200,000. I cost you? Renee's voice went shrill. You were trying to rob him using my information. You didn't even care if it was true. You just wanted his money. And you wanted him so bad, you were willing to blow up his entire life to get him. Kendra fired back. At least I'm honest about being a gold digger. You're delusional. They were squaring up now, both of them on my porch. Renee still holding her stupid casserole dish. I would have treated him right, Renee said. I would have appreciated him, not sat around spending his money on failed businesses. You would have driven him insane within a month, Kendra snapped. You're a stalker. He rejected you and you couldn't handle it. He rejected you. The court rejected you. You lost everything. Because of your fake screenshots, you psycho— Renee threw the casserole, just hurled the entire dish at Kendra. It hit her square in the chest. Lasagna exploded everywhere, red sauce and cheese sliding down Kendra's sweatshirt. Kendra screamed and lunged, full tackle. They both went down on my porch in a pile of broken ceramic and pasta. I stepped back inside and closed the screen door. Let them fight it out. Pulled my phone and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Yeah, hi. I've got two women brawling on my front porch. My ex-wife and the co-worker who got her divorced. Need someone to come separate them before they kill each other. Through the screen, I watched Kendra get Renee in a headlock. Renee was trying to scratch her face. They were rolling around in lasagna. It was honestly impressive how much damage they were doing to each other. Are you just gonna stand there? Kendra shrieked at me, still wrestling Renee. Yep, I said calmly. Police are on their way. I love you, Renee yelled, trying to pull Kendra's hair while simultaneously being choked. We could be happy together. No, we couldn't, I called back. You're banned from my property. That's called trespassing. Kendra managed to pin Renee down. You ruined my life. Your life was already ruined, Renee shot back, bucking her off. They were still fighting when the squad car pulled up 3 minutes later. 2 officers. Both looked tired. Sir, are these 2 women bothering you? The first officer asked. That's my ex-wife, I pointed at Kendra, who was now sitting on Renee's back. She was here to pick up her stuff. That's my former co-worker. She showed up uninvited with lasagna and declarations of love. They started fighting on my porch. The officers separated them, both women covered in tomato sauce and grass stains. The second officer was taking statements. He's my husband, Kendra was saying. Ex-husband, Renee corrected. Can we just, the first officer said, looking exhausted, can we just get you both to leave the property peacefully? I'm not leaving without my stuff, Kendra said. Ma'am, you threw hands on his porch, the officer said. You can arrange another pickup time. Oh, what about her? Kendra pointed at Renee. Ma'am, he turned to Renee. Do you have any legitimate reason to be here? Renee looked at me, still hopeful somehow. I thought we could talk. We can't, I said flatly. Leave my property. Don't come back. Her face finally cracked, started crying. The officer walked her to her car. Kendra got escorted to hers. Gave me one last look through the window. Not angry anymore, just empty. Both cars pulled away. Officers took my statement, checked that I didn't want to press charges, and left. I went inside. Boomer was waiting by the door. Women are exhausting, buddy, I told him, scratching his ears. He wagged his tail. Only creature in this whole mess with any sense. I grabbed a soda, sat back down, and turned the game back on. Final score. Me 1, Chaos 0. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. After losing my parents, my aunt chose to take my brother and quietly put me up for adoption. 19 years later, she wants my help after she got a massive stroke, and I'm conflicted. Hey Reddit, I need to get this off my chest. So please read the whole thing, then tell me, did I handle it right? I'm Ethan, 26 male, and I just got an insane call. My Aunt Grace, the same woman who literally tried to erase me from existence when I was 7, had a massive stroke, and apparently she wants my help now. Now let me rewind. When I was 7 years old, my parents died in a head-on collision with a semi-truck. The driver fell asleep at the wheel, crossed the median on I-25, and that was it. My younger brother Noah and I were at home. He was 5. 1 minute we're fighting over who gets to play Mario Kart. The next minute, 2 cops are at our door. My Aunt Grace swooped in almost immediately. She lived in Scottsdale with her husband and her son Oliver in their perfect McMansion. She showed up to the funeral in an all-black Chanel outfit, dabbing at her eyes like she was auditioning for a soap opera. This woman had always been obsessed with appearances. Everything had to look right. Her house looked like a West Elm catalog. Her son Oliver had to be the best at everything, and she'd been judging me since I could walk. Before my parents died, whenever she visited, she'd make these little comments. Noah was the good kid, quiet, obedient, followed directions. I was the problem child because I had energy and opinions. I talked back sometimes. Normal kid stuff, but to Grace, it was like I was feral. After the funeral, there was a family meeting about what would happen to Noah and me. I remember sitting on the stairs in my grandma's house, listening through the railing while the adults argued below. Grace's voice cut through everything. I'll take Noah. He's young enough that he'll adjust well, and he's always been such a sweet, easy child. Someone asked about me. Grace's response is burned into my brain. I can't take both. Oliver needs stability right now with his college prep, and honestly, the older one has always been difficult. He needs more attention than I can provide. Difficult. That's what she called a 7-year-old kid who just lost both parents. My grandma fought her on it, said we shouldn't be separated, that splitting up brothers was cruel. But Grace had an answer for everything. She had the bigger house. She had the financial stability. And she made it very clear that it was Noah or nobody. She wasn't taking me under any circumstances. While this family debate was happening, Grace had already started quietly putting me into foster care. She contacted social services, started the paperwork, and scheduled meetings. She was going to take Noah and dump me in the system, and nobody would have known until it was too late. Except my parents had friends. Hank and Sharon Hale were our neighbors growing up. They heard through the family grapevine what Grace was planning, and they lost their minds. Hank called Grace late one night, told her what she was doing was evil, that she was destroying a kid's life for no reason except he didn't fit her country club image. Grace said she was doing what was best for everyone, and that Hank needed to mind his own business. So Hank and Sharon showed up to Grace's house the next day with a lawyer. They told her they were adopting me, and if she had a problem with it, they'd make sure every single person in the family knew she was trying to throw a traumatized kid into foster care. Then, the fight happened. Hank called Grace every name in the book. Sharon told her she was a disgrace to my mother's memory. Grace just stood there with her arms crossed, ice cold, and said, "You can have him, but don't expect me to play happy family with your charity case." She called me a charity case. Hank and Sharon took me home that day. Within 2 months, the adoption was finalized, and we moved to Denver. Noah stayed with Grace in Scottsdale. I cried about losing my brother for maybe a few weeks. Then honestly, I moved on. The Hales saved my life. Real talk. Hank taught me how to work with my hands, took me to Broncos games, never made me feel like I was too much. Sharon helped me with homework, packed my lunches, and showed up to every school event. They had 2 daughters already, and they folded me into the family like I'd always been there. After we moved, my extended family cut Grace off completely. Everyone was disgusted by what she did. She got iced out of every family event, every holiday, every reunion. For the past 19 years, I haven't heard from Grace or Noah. Not a birthday card, not a Christmas text, nothing. I lived my life, graduated high school, went to college for finance, got a solid job at an investment firm in Denver, bought a condo. I started dating my girlfriend Rachel 4 years ago, and we're talking about getting married. Life has been good. I built something real with people who actually cared about me. Then last week, out of nowhere, I got a call from a rehabilitation facility in Scottsdale. Some nurse named Gail tells me Grace had a massive stroke 8 months ago that left her partially paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair. And since then, her entire family has abandoned her. Her husband divorced her. Her son Oliver stopped visiting. Noah moved across the country and blocked her number. Grace is alone, dependent on facility care, and apparently she's been asking for me. The kid she threw away? Gail says Grace cries most nights, talks about regrets, keeps saying she needs to fix things while she still can. Noah gave them my number before he blocked Grace's calls, and now they're reaching out because Grace is having episodes where she becomes severely depressed about the boy she gave away. Gail asks if I'd be willing to visit. I sat there on my couch, phone pressed to my ear, genuinely speechless. This woman destroyed me. And now, 19 years later, because everyone else bailed on her, suddenly I'm good enough? I told the nurse I'd think about it and call her back. Then I hung up and stared at the wall for about 20 minutes, trying to process what the heck just happened. After that phone call, I started digging into what Grace's life had been like for the past 19 years. Call it morbid curiosity, call it closure. I needed to know what happened to the woman who threw me away. She had Facebook and Instagram, both public. Her Facebook was a highlight reel of perfection up until about 2 years ago. Photos of her and her husband Simon at charity galas. Pictures of Oliver's college graduation from USC. His wedding. Their expensive honeymoon in Bali. Everything screamed money and status. But around 2 years ago, the posts started getting weird. Lots of inspirational quotes about family and regret. Photos of Grace alone with captions about appreciating the important things. Then nothing for the past 8 months. Right around when the stroke probably happened. I called my cousin Marco. He's the only family member who still keeps tabs on everyone. Man, I was wondering when you'd reach out, Marco said when he answered. You heard about Grace? Got a call from her rehab facility. Fill me in. He let out a long breath. Okay, so Grace's life imploded about 3 years ago. You remember Oliver, her golden child? Vaguely. Well, Oliver grew up completely fried. Grace pushed him so hard his entire childhood that by the time he got to college, he was having panic attacks and taking anxiety medication like candy. He graduated, got a finance job, and got married. But inside, he was falling apart. Sounds familiar? It gets worse. Oliver had a complete breakdown about 3 years ago. Quit his job, told Grace and Simon he'd spent his whole life trying to please them, and he was done. Said Grace destroyed him with her expectations and control. He moved to Seattle and cut contact. What about Noah? What happened to my brother? I asked. Your brother's a whole other story. He never adjusted to living with Grace. She tried to mold him the same way she molded Oliver, but Noah just shut down. He got severely depressed in high school, barely graduated, and couldn't hold down a job. Grace kept trying to force him into college prep and career planning, and Noah just couldn't do it. He finally snapped around the same time Oliver did. Moved to Portland, works at some bookstore, wants nothing to do with Grace. And Simon? Divorced her about 6 months ago. Once the stroke happened and Grace became physically dependent, Simon decided he was out, filed papers, took most of the assets, and moved to California. Didn't even stick around to help her transition to the facility. Wow. Yeah, so Grace is alone. And now she's stuck in a wheelchair, partially paralyzed, and nobody gives a crap about her. The kicker? Her mind is completely fine. She's fully aware of everything. Every day she wakes up and knows exactly why she's alone. I should have felt satisfied. The woman who rejected me was getting exactly what she deserved, but instead I just felt empty. They want me to visit her, I said. Are you going to? Heck no. Good. You don't owe her anything, man. After I hung up with Marco, I told Rachel everything. She listened while I explained the whole history. Everyone's going to expect me to visit, right? I asked her. She shook her head. You're not obligated to give closure to someone who never gave you any. The fact that she's physically disabled doesn't change what she did to you. She knows exactly what she did. Over the next few days, I kept thinking about Grace. And that's when I remembered something important. My parents had a life insurance policy, $500,000 split between Noah and me. Grace was named as the trustee until we turned 21. I got my share when I hit 21, no issues. But I'd never followed up on whether Noah got his. I called my old family lawyer, asked him to pull the records on the trust. What he told me made my blood run cold. Grace had been skimming from Noah's trust for years. Started small, a few thousand here and there for living expenses and educational costs. But by the time Noah turned 21, she drained almost $150,000 of his inheritance. Can we do anything about it? I asked. Now? Probably not. Too much time has passed, and she'd claim it was all legitimate expenses for raising him. I sat there staring at my computer screen, mind racing. Grace didn't just reject me and take Noah. She used him, took his money, broke his spirit, and tossed him aside when he didn't perform up to her standards. That's when I decided. I wasn't visiting Grace to give her closure, but I was going to confront her with exactly what she'd lost and what she'd done. Not revenge, just the truth. I spent the next week putting together a plan, just a dismantling of the narrative Grace had probably built in her head about why her life fell apart. People like her don't accept responsibility. They rewrite history to make themselves the victim. I'd bet money that in her version of events, she was the loving aunt who made hard choices, and Oliver and Noah were ungrateful kids who abandoned her for no reason. First, I reached out to Noah. Marco had an old email address. I sent him a message explaining who I was and asking if we could talk. He responded 2 days later, gave me his number. This is weird, Noah said when he picked up. His voice was deeper than I remembered, but there was this exhaustion in it. Yeah, it's been 19 years. We made small talk for a few minutes. Then I asked him about the trust fund. There was a long silence. How did you know about that? Noah asked quietly. I had my lawyer pull the records. She took you for about $150,000. I know. I figured it out a few years ago. But what was I supposed to do? She documented everything. And honestly, I just wanted to be done with her. Did you ever confront her about it? Once. Right before I moved to Portland. She said she spent it raising me and I should be grateful she took me in at all. Said I was expensive and difficult and she could have put me up for adoption like she tried to do with you. My jaw clenched. She said that to you? Multiple times. Anytime I didn't meet her expectations, she'd remind me that I was a burden she chose to take on. Even after the stroke, when I visited her in the hospital, she tried to guilt me. Said I owed her for everything she'd done, that I needed to help take care of her now. That's when I left and blocked her number. Noah, they called me. The rehab facility. They want me to visit Grace. I know. I gave them your number. I'm sorry, man. She kept begging me to contact you, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. I'm not going to visit her to give her closure, I said. But I am going to go down there, and I need your help. I explained my plan. He was quiet for a minute, then he let out a short laugh. That's cold, man. She earned it. Over the next few days, Noah sent me everything. Emails from Grace over the years criticizing him, berating him for not being good enough, documentation of the times she threatened to kick him out if he didn't meet her standards, screenshots of bank statements showing the trust fund withdrawals. I also reached out to Oliver through LinkedIn. He was suspicious at first, but once I explained I wasn't looking for a reunion, just information, he agreed to a call. Oliver's story was even worse. Grace had been emotionally abusive his entire childhood. Nothing was ever good enough. A 95 on a test was a failure. Second place in a piano competition meant he wasn't trying hard enough. She controlled every aspect of his life until he escaped to college. She destroyed my first marriage, Oliver told me. My ex-wife couldn't handle her constant interference. And I was so conditioned to please my mother that I took Grace's side every time. He'd been in therapy for 5 years trying to undo the damage. He'd remarried, moved across the country, blocked Grace's number. With Noah and Oliver's help, I put together a comprehensive timeline. Every terrible thing Grace had done to each of us. Documented with texts, emails, bank records, medical records showing Noah's depression and Oliver's anxiety disorders. Then I contacted my family lawyer and had him draft a formal letter outlining the trust fund situation. Something official looking that spelled out exactly what she'd done. The final piece was a letter I wrote myself. I let it all out on the paper. How she rejected me at 7 years old. How she tried to put me in foster care. How she took Noah and destroyed him. How she stole from deceased parents' children to fund her lifestyle. The worst thing you can do to someone like Grace isn't to scream at them. It's to calmly show them the damage they'd caused. Rachel read it when I was done. This is brutal, she said. Is it too much? No. It's exactly what she needs to hear. But are you sure you want to do this? I'm sure. She spent 19 years never taking responsibility for what she did. The stroke doesn't erase what she did. Then I'm coming with you. We booked flights to Scottsdale for the following week. The week before we flew to Scottsdale, my adoptive dad Hank had a heart-to-heart with me about the Grace situation. Hank's not usually the type to get deep about emotions. But the night before Rachel and I were supposed to leave, he asked me to go grab some food with him. We ended up at this diner near his place. Hank didn't say anything for a while, just looked out the window. Finally, Sharon told me you're going to see Grace. Yeah, Rachel and I fly out tomorrow. You don't owe that woman anything. You know that, right? I know. Then why go? Because I need her to see what she actually did. Not for her. For me. Hank nodded slowly. That's fair. He took a long sip. You know, after we adopted you, Grace called Sharon. Said we'd made a huge mistake. That you were going to be a problem kid, and we'd regret taking you in. I'd never heard this before. What did Sharon say? She told Grace off and hung up. Hank smiled slightly. Then she cried for an hour because she was so angry. Not about what Grace said about you. Sharon never doubted you for a second. She cried because she couldn't believe someone could be that hateful about a kid who'd already been through so much. Something tightened in my chest. I didn't know that. We never told you because we wanted you to feel safe and wanted, which you were. You still are. I know, Dad. He reached across the table and gripped my shoulder. You turned out better than Grace ever deserved. Don't forget that when you're sitting across from her tomorrow. We finished our meal and drove home. That conversation did more for me than any amount of therapy could have. The next morning, Rachel and I flew to Phoenix, rented a car, and drove to Scottsdale. The rehab facility was in North Scottsdale. After lunch, we drove to Desert Springs Rehabilitation Center. The lobby was trying too hard to be cheerful. Pastel colors, abstract art, a fake fireplace. The smell hit me immediately. That nursing home smell of disinfectant trying to cover up decay. A woman in scrubs came out to meet us. Gail, the nurse who'd called me. "You must be the nephew," she said. "Thank you for coming. Grace has been asking about you constantly. How is she?" "Physically, she's stable. The stroke left her with left side paralysis, and she's wheelchair bound. But her cognitive function is completely intact. She's sharp as ever, actually. That's almost harder for her." "Has she been cooperative with therapy?" "Not really. She gets depressed often, refuses to participate. I told her this morning you were coming and she got very emotional." "Can I be honest with you?" I asked Gail. "Of course. I'm not here to forgive her or give her closure. It's not going to be a happy reunion." Gail studied me for a moment, then nodded. "I appreciate you being upfront, but I need you to keep it calm. If she becomes too distressed, I'll have to ask you to leave." "That's fair." Gail led us down a hallway. We stopped outside room 47. She knocked, then opened the door. "Grace, your nephew is here to see you." The woman sitting in the wheelchair by the window was barely recognizable. The aunt I remembered was polished and put together. She looked hollowed out. She'd lost weight. Her left arm hung uselessly in her lap. She saw me and her face crumpled. "Oh my God," she whispered. "You came." I walked into the room. Rachel stayed by the door. Grace tried to wheel herself forward with her good hand, shaky, reaching toward me. I stayed where I was, keeping distance between us. "Hello, Grace." She flinched at me using her first name. "You look so much like your father." "I can't believe I thought you'd never come. I thought you hated me." "I don't hate you. I don't feel anything about you." Her face fell. "I understand. I know what I did was unforgivable, but I need you to know I regret it. Every day I regret it." "Do you regret it? Or do you regret that it didn't work out the way you wanted?" Grace blinked. "What?" I pulled out the folder I'd brought, sat down in the chair across from her. Rachel moved into the room and stood behind me, her hand on my shoulder. "I'm not here for a reconciliation," I said. "I'm here because you're fully aware of everything. And before you die, I need you to understand exactly what you did and what it cost." "I don't understand." "You tried to put me in foster care when I was 7 years old. You told the family I was difficult and you couldn't handle me. You called me a charity case when Hank and Sharon adopted me. Do you remember that?" Her eyes went wide. I was overwhelmed. Your mother had just died, and I had Oliver to think about. I was 7, and I'd just lost both my parents. My voice stayed calm. You took Noah and destroyed him. You stole $150,000 from his trust fund. He developed clinical depression because of you. I gave that boy everything. You gave him nothing but trauma. I opened the folder and pulled out the bank statements. Slid them across to her lap. "Here's documentation of every withdrawal you made from his trust fund. My lawyer reviewed it. Technically legal, but morally bankrupt. You used deceased parents' money to fund your lifestyle." Grace stared at the papers with her good hand trembling. "I had expenses." "Oliver," I continued, pulling out the next set of documents. "You pushed him so hard he had a complete breakdown at 26. He's been in therapy for 5 years. He hasn't spoken to you in 3 years, even before your stroke." I laid Oliver's emails on her lap. "I wanted him to succeed. You wanted him to be perfect so you could show him off." Her face was pale now. "Ethan, I made mistakes. I know I did. But I loved my family. I loved you. You ruined 3 lives." I pulled out the final document, the letter I'd written. "This is everything you did. Every cruel word, every manipulation, every failure." I wrote it all down. I stood up, placed the letter in her lap. "Read it or don't. I don't care. But you need to understand something. You're alone because you earned it. Oliver's not coming back. Noah's not coming back. Simon left you. And I was never yours to lose because you threw me away before I was old enough to understand what family meant." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "Please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I can barely do anything by myself anymore. I need help. I am so lonely now. I need family. You think people left because of the stroke? Because you need help now?" I leaned forward. "They didn't leave because you became disabled. They left because you spent decades being cruel to people who loved you. The stroke just gave them an excuse to finally do what they should have done years ago. That's not... I was a good mother." "You never were. You were an obstacle." I turned to leave. Grace tried to wheel after me, awkward and desperate. "Wait, please. I can change. Just give me a chance. You had 19 years to reach out, to apologize, to be a better person. You didn't. Now your body is broken, and you're scared, and you want me to absolve you. I'm not doing that." Rachel and I walked to the door. Behind us, Grace was crying harder now, struggling to turn her wheelchair around. "I'm your family. You can't be that heartless." I stopped, turned back one last time. You're not my family. Hank and Sharon are my family. You taught me exactly what family isn't, and I'm grateful for that lesson. Grace collapsed forward in her wheelchair, sobbing into her good hand. The papers scattered around her. I walked out and didn't look back. In the hallway, Gail touched my arm gently. Are you okay? Yeah, I'm good. That was hard to watch, but I think she needed to hear it. She's been trying to convince herself that everyone left because of the stroke. You showed her the truth. Will she accept it? Gail shrugged sadly. Some people never do, but at least she can't pretend anymore. Rachel and I walked out into the brutal Arizona sun. I felt lighter somehow, like I'd been carrying something heavy for 19 years and finally set it down. 3 weeks after the Scottsdale trip, life went back to normal. Then Noah called me on a Tuesday night. Hey man, I wanted to give you a heads up. Grace's lawyer contacted me today. I put my drink down. Why? Apparently Grace updated her will. Right after you visited her, actually. She left everything to charity, some stroke research foundation. Oliver and I got completely written out. Wow. How do you feel about that? Honestly, relieved. I don't want her money. It's tainted. But her lawyer wanted me to know, because Grace attached a letter to the will. He read it to me over the phone. What did it say? Noah was quiet for a moment. She apologized, said she knew she failed Oliver and me, and that we deserved better than she gave us. Said she was leaving her money to charity because she didn't want us to feel obligated to remember her. She wanted us to be free of her, and she specifically mentioned you. Said you were right about everything, and that she finally understood why we all left. That's surprisingly self-aware. Yeah, the lawyer said she wrote it about a week after you visited. Apparently that conversation wrecked her. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me just felt sad. What a waste of a life. Oliver got the same call, Noah continued. He and I talked about it. We're thinking of meeting up, the three of us. Like actually trying to be brothers instead of just survivors of the same terrible guardian. I'd like that. We talked for another hour. Noah told me more about his life in Portland, his girlfriend, how he was finally starting to feel like maybe he could be okay. That weekend, I got a group text from Noah. He'd created a group chat with Oliver and me. The Survivors Club, he called it. Oliver sent a selfie from Seattle. Noah sent one from Portland. 3 brothers who barely knew each other but were connected by shared trauma. Over the next few months, we started talking regularly. Just normal sibling banter. It was strange and awkward at first, but it got easier. Oliver told me he was planning a trip to Denver with his wife and kids. Noah said he'd fly out too. We'd do a weekend together, actually get to know each other as adults. About 2 months after my visit to Scottsdale, Gail from Desert Springs called me. I wanted to update you on Grace's condition, she said. She's declined significantly. Not physically, the stroke damage is stable, but mentally and emotionally. She's developed severe depression. She barely eats, refuses most therapy, spends most of her time alone in her room. She talks about you sometimes. She keeps the documents you left on her nightstand. Okay, thanks for letting me know. She asks if you've called, if you're coming back. I tell her no, and she just nods and stares out the window. I think your visit stayed with her. I'm not coming back. I know. I just thought you should know that she heard you. After that call, I felt something shift. The anger I'd been carrying finally dissolved. I'd said what I needed to say. Grace had heard it and acknowledged it. That was more than most people got from their abusers. Hank asked me about it one night when he and Sharon came over for dinner. You seem lighter lately, he said while we were grilling steaks. I think I finally let go of the past. He nodded. Good. You deserve that closure. Later that night, after they left, Rachel and I were cleaning up. You know what's wild? I said. Grace spent my entire childhood trying to erase me, and I ended up with a better family anyway. That's because good people found you, and because you let them in. Do you think Oliver and Noah will be okay? I think they're working on it, and having you as a brother probably helps. You're proof that surviving Grace is possible. A few weeks later, Noah, Oliver, and I had a video call. It was supposed to be logistical, planning the Denver meetup, but it turned into a 3-hour conversation about our lives. We should make a pact, Oliver said. Grace doesn't get to define us anymore. We're brothers. Agreed, Noah said. It felt right. 3 guys who'd been dealt a bad hand deciding to play it better. Now I need to backtrack a bit. Focus. Remember the will? It wasn't actually the end. Grace didn't die right after writing it. But before she passed, something happened that made me go back to Scottsdale one more time. About a month after my first visit, Gail called me again. I know you said you weren't coming back, Gail said, but Grace has been having severe episodes. She keeps saying there's something in her safe deposit box that you need to see. Something about your mother and the custody situation. She's given me the key and written authorization for you to access it. That got my attention. What's in the box? She won't say, but she's convinced it's urgent. She says if you don't get it, he'll never know the whole truth. 2 days later, I flew back to Scottsdale. I didn't tell Noah or Oliver because I didn't want to get them worked up over what was probably nothing. I went to the bank first. Inside Grace's box was a large manila envelope, a jewelry box, and a leather journal. I took everything to a private viewing room and opened the envelope first. Inside were legal documents, dated from right after my parents died. I started reading, and my blood went cold. Grace hadn't just rejected me. She'd fought like crazy to make sure I never knew what my parents actually wanted. My parents had left a will. In it, they specified that if anything happened to them, Hank and Sharon Hale were to be our legal guardians, both Noah and me. It was in writing, notarized, filed with their lawyer. But after the accident, Grace had contested the will. She claimed my parents had been mentally unstable when they wrote it, that Hank and Sharon were unfit guardians. She'd filed an emergency motion to gain temporary custody while the estate was being settled. Her lawyer had buried Hank and Sharon in paperwork, depositions, motions, delays. It went on for months. And during all of this, Grace had been working to put me in foster care, arguing to social services that Noah needed stability, and I was too disruptive. The documents showed everything. Court transcripts where Grace's lawyer painted Hank as an unstable construction worker with financial problems. The psychological evaluation Grace had paid for that deemed Sharon too emotionally fragile to handle two traumatized children. Hank and Sharon had fought like crazy, but Grace had money and connections, and she'd dragged it out until they were drowning in legal fees. Finally, there was a settlement agreement. Grace would keep Noah, Hank and Sharon would take me. The will's directive that we stay together would be waived. Both parties would agree to no further legal action. Hank and Sharon had signed it because they were broke and terrified of losing me completely. But here's the truly messed up part. At the bottom of the pile was a letter from my mom to Hank and Sharon, written about 2 years before the accident. Hank and Sharon, I know this letter seems overly cautious, but I need to put this in writing. If anything ever happens to Simon and me, please don't let my sister Grace take the boys. She's not capable of giving them the love and stability they need. She's too concerned with image and control. You two are the kindest people we know. You understand what it means to love children unconditionally. If something happens to us, please fight for our boys. Keep them together. Don't let Grace separate them. I'm trusting you with my greatest treasures. With all my love and gratitude, Catherine. My hands were shaking. She knew Grace would try to do this, and she'd tried to prevent it. But Grace had fought dirty and won anyway. I sat in that bank room for probably 20 minutes, just staring at the documents. Then I opened the journal. It was Grace's diary, spanning the 6 months after my parents died. The entries were brutal. The older one is exhausting. He cries constantly, asks too many questions, and won't sit still. Simon thinks we should take both boys. I told him absolutely not. 1 traumatized child is manageable. 2 would destroy our household. I don't understand why Catherine wanted the boys with the Hales instead of me. Was I really that terrible in her eyes? That last entry was the only hint of self-awareness in the entire journal, but it was quickly followed by, it doesn't matter what Catherine wanted. I know what's best. Noah will thrive with Oliver and me. The other one will be fine wherever he ends up. The other one. She couldn't even write my name. I closed the journal and sat there feeling a weird mix of rage and vindication. Grace was worse than I thought. I took the envelope and journal, left the jewelry box, walked out of the bank and drove to Desert Springs Rehabilitation Center. Gail was at the nurse's station. She looked surprised to see me. I didn't think you were coming. I need to see her. Now. I walked down the hallway to Grace's room, knocked once and walked in. She was in her wheelchair by the window, staring at nothing. She looked even worse than last time, like she'd given up on living. I pulled up a chair directly in front of her, blocking her view. Grace. She slowly turned her head toward me. She whispered, "You came back." I went to the bank. I read everything. Her face went even paler. I needed you to know. Know what? That you fought against my parents' wishes? That my mom specifically wrote a letter begging Hank and Sharon to keep you away from us? Grace's breath hitched. Your mother, she never understood. My mother understood exactly who you were, and she tried to stop you. But you fought dirty. I thought I was doing the right thing. My voice stayed calm. You did what served you. You wanted the easy kid and got rid of the difficult one. You fought a legal battle against 2 people who couldn't afford to fight back. Grace was crying now, but this was different. Defeated. Broken. I kept those documents because I felt guilty. Every time I looked at Noah and saw how miserable he was, I'd think about you. Wonder if I made the wrong choice. She was right about you. I know. Grace slumped in her wheelchair. I spent 19 years trying to prove your mother wrong, and all I did was prove her right. I destroyed everyone I touched. I leaned forward. Here's what I want you to understand in whatever time you have left. You didn't just fail. You fought against my parents' dying wishes. You separated two brothers who just lost everything. I know. Why did you want me to see those documents now? She was quiet for a long moment. Because I'm dying, she cried. I stood up, holding the envelope and journal. I'm going to show these to Hank and Sharon. They deserve to know they were following my mom's wishes. Good. Grace looked up at me. Tell them I'm sorry. For what I said about them. For everything. I'm not your messenger. If you want to apologize to them, write another letter. Though I doubt they'd read it. She nodded slowly. That night, I sat down with Hank and Sharon and showed them everything. The will contest. The legal motions. My mom's letter. Sharon cried when she read it. Hank just sat there, jaw clenched. We always knew your mom wanted you, Sharon said finally. But to see it written down like this, she trusted us. Thank you, I said, for fighting for me. 2 weeks after that second visit, Grace died from pneumonia. Her body just gave up. Gail called Noah first, and he called me. Oliver joined the call. We spent an hour talking, not about Grace, but about our lives, our plans, our futures. When Rachel came home that night, she sat next to me. You okay? Yeah. Feels like the chapter is closed. That night, I took out my mom's letter again. Read it one more time. I'm trusting you with my greatest treasures. My mom called me and Noah her greatest treasures. And she trusted Hank and Sharon to protect us. They did. At least for me, they did. And now, 26 years later, I was getting married to an incredible woman, rebuilding relationships with my brothers, living a life my parents would be proud of. And that is what I call justice. YouTube just dropped this new hype feature. If you're hooked on this story, smash that hype button. It tells YouTube this video deserves to blow up, and it keeps even crazier stories coming your way.